Hello everybody. Again, it is the one and only Ran, and this is a match to finish up the discussion that was started in the Christmas Death Miracle. This is going to be a solo lane Ymir, and I wanted to show this off to a supplement as well as show a point of something I wanted to talk about in the last video, which was me demonstrating a Hades solo lane with my damage sealer build. This is going to be somewhat close to the same type of gameplay as a tank on a solo lane. However, the difference here is that Ymir is not a very big solo laner. And the reason why this Ymir is on solo lane in this video is because of the fact that somebody on my team, our Chacc, refused to listen to me when I told him that I need to go with our Cupid onto dual lane. But he kept vehemently telling me, "Hey bro, don't worry about it bro, I'm better than you bro, I'm better bro," and basically that. And in this gameplay I'm going to actually explain, in this case, the reasons why that doesn't apply and why that's not good, as well as covering basically the why of why a god can do something and the why not of when it can't. For Ymir is a magical melee tank, so he can hit things at melee range, and his passive is doubling the damage that he can do with his melee attacks when he has his debuff on the enemy. Now, back in the olden days of Vintage Smite, this type of Ymir was called a face smash Ymir. And the way that he would play is that you would get rage, and you would either build large amounts of physical damage to go along with what you would build, as well as using some magical items so that you could get cooldown on it. And basically you would keep smacking the enemy in the face, and the crits would do all the damage. Now, for the magical Ymir of this version of Smite, as well as the recent patches, Ymir don't get crits. He gets no crits. So this is something that he cannot do. But because of Ymir being what Ymir is, he can actually do plenty of things, but he's not built to do it against more than 2 people when he's doing stuff. Like right here, got killed trying to go after this invasion in our jungle. As you can see, I have no defense. Why? Because I'm in solo lane, so I don't have the survivability I should have. Now Chacc didn't know he needed to keep attacking because he just assumed, oh shit, 2 of them, run away. He was not prepared to counter jungle. And because he was not prepared to counter jungle, that sets up a very bad position for me on dual lane. And because of that, it puts us at a very bad start, despite being able to come back later. Although it's very much later. But my point about it is this. Because of him not being capable of doing that, we gotta now go counter gank Spider because of what she did there. Because we can't let her be ahead with free kills, because that's not good. So knowing that she's there, and knowing that we can get her, we go ahead and get that kill despite him getting put down. That lets me catch up just a little bit faster than normal. So, starting off, just very It's not very good for me in terms of everything. It's just not. Then of course you have the problem with me fighting against Chacc. Now, it's very iffy with a Chacc on Ymir combat. The reason why is because of how I have to fight Chacc. But the main problem with it is that Chacc's going to do one of those numbers. He's going to try to do the typical rewind combo. The rewind combo being 1, free basic 2, and then finishing up with something else. But playing against a Chacc is a matter of defense, health, and actual power. Now, the number 1 problem here with this is that Chacc not being aware as well as being stuffed, doesn't know that he needs to start ganking immediately. He instead is wasting time. And because he's wasting time, he isn't able to pick up that kill off the wall, which accidentally blocks him, and he can't silence him because he either is wasting it or is waiting for something else, and Chacc's able to get away. So, yeah. Ymir, he can solo lane, but not well against people that are melee fighters. For Chacc, because of how his defenses work, it's not so bad. But in terms of actually being able to duel Chacc, kill Chacc, make sure that Chacc goes down and that I can stick my kills. It's a matter of me and how much damage I can do with my basic attacks. In terms of this, because of how strong he gets, because of stuff, he's able to do that much damage. And because of how Chacc is and how he plays, he's trying to basically kite as much as possible so that he can get all of his damage. And this is where Ymir solo lane falls off, because of how this starts happening. And it's not my fault, and it's not Rack's fault, but this is the type of back and forth that happens with Ymir on solo lane. And this isn't supposed to happen because we already have a counter Chacc. But because he decided to not listen and be a team player, and he decided to sit on dual lane because breaking meta, this is the situation that happens in it. Which parallels the Hades situation, which was when I was denied a role because somebody assumed that I could do something when I knew I couldn't. And in this one, I have the capacity to do it, but I cannot do it because of the lack of expert plays being made. Which is nobody's fault, because it's not like I can pull Rack to the side, despite him being a fan, and teach him about these types of plays. But because Rack's not prepared to make those types of plays, and he's not capable of making those plays, I can't force him into something that he's not experienced at doing. As you can see, that's pretty much how a Ymir stare down with Chacc works. And I did that despite him being level 8. So yeah, those claims about fed gods not being killable, it's bull. But, back to my point, this tank solo lane play is lesser than the Hades solo lane play. The reason why is because Ymir has no form of healing himself naturally from his kit. So potions are a very big thing for him. He also has to worry more about his defenses, although he doesn't really have to worry a lot about his power. It's this kind of concern that keeps me at a pretty decent form. Good example being right about there. And actually a very good cross-up being right about here. In a Hades gameplay, I wouldn't have been capable of picking up this kill right about here, because the kill that I needed to pick up was him. But because Spider was in my way body blocking, we actually picked her up instead of him. If I was Hades, that would have been an easy 2 for kill. But because I'm Ymir, that happens. Now, if I had more protections, probably would have not been such a problem, since both of them start with the same 2 items. But in terms of the actual killing capacity, I was not able to stick the easy double that I should have gotten. Mostly because I cannot build the types of damage that I would need for that to happen. Because of what jungle I'm playing against, and because of what jungle I have with me, and the skill of that jungler. Now, for Hades in Christmas Death Miracle, I had to turn that around because our jungle was a bad player. In terms of not knowing when to gank, not knowing that the person who he was denying the role was more capable of doing it, etc, 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 etc. And here, the jungle is, he's competent, and he's very good at what he's attempting to do, but he's just not fully skilled at it. And because he's not fully skilled at it, I can't force him to do something that I know he's not truly comfortable doing. He can do it just a little bit, but he's not the greatest. And because of that, it affects my gameplay. Again, it's mostly the role capacity. Because Ymir, having the combo of skills, what he does, having a blocking wall, having a slow and stun slow for his abilities, as well as a slowing and very high burst damage ultimate, can do plenty of things that make it possible for him to kill people. However, it's very easy to get around him if you have to worry about other things. Like that gank right there. Despite the fact that I was winning my lane, I now have to make up for it by chasing down these skills to get a little bit more powerful and do other things. Now, if I was Hades, Spider would have been feared, Spider would have been held, Spider would have been dead. Easy middle lane tower, simple stuff. But because our Chacc was the type of player who assumes he knew what he was talking about because he assumed he was correct, we can't do that. Also, notice that I am the tank. But because I'm not in the tank role on the tank lane, I'm not doing what should be my job. And because I'm not doing what should be my job, I'm not capable of doing what I should be doing. Which is my concern. But, yeah. Doing something that's really not supposed to be my job, and I get killed for it. Because really, what I should have done is I should have ran all the way to left lane and pushed with Rack, because I knew they were coming. But because All-Star, which is Chacc, decided to try to be in the tank role, but as the brawler, who should have been on solo, and I was not getting the gold and the defenses to be able to do what I needed to do there, to push that middle lane with her, to get what I needed, I was not capable of picking up what I wanted to pick up. Just another example of what I was doing and what I had the capacity to do, but what I shouldn't be doing. Because in this case, I shouldn't be on solo lane. I should be in the dual lane. I should be playing with it. But because Chacc wanted to be so much of an annoyance to tell me what was and what wasn't, I had to leave it alone because I wasn't going to waste time. Because in this match, we have them. We most assuredly do have them. They have to do defusal fights to disengage us and get us to get off of them so that they can save lanes. But when it comes down to it, we're able to do what we need to get done. And we're already at the point of winning the game in terms of objective play because of how well we're working together. Now, this perfect example of skilled. And here, another perfect example of why it is that we were winning. Because I'm the tank on this solo lane, I'm able to set up some very interesting fights. Because I have that crowd control and I have that blocking potential. Because of my blocking potential and because of Rack and I's perfect play for those kills in the lane, with him going up and him slamming down on Athena just enough to get her damage so that he could get the rest of that health to stay alive against Chacc, it forced Spider to rotate into the lane. And because he and I were ready for that rotation, when we were able to block them off, as well as Allied and All-Star, as Chacc and Nuwa coming in for the rotations, we were able to get down everything that we needed to get down. But despite that, there was plenty of other things that we couldn't do, that we were not prepared for, and that we couldn't hold back. Now, the example here is actually going to be a bad case of what we did have problems with in this game, which was Rack's inability of foreseeing rotations. Like, that back right there was the worst choice he could have made, because he could have turned around, he could have burned Hebo. But because Hebo's rotating on us hard, the only thing I can do is attempt to run away from him, but I fail to, because water spout. But, basic point. Had Chacc been there, Allied Chacc would have been able to stop Hebo and Neith. Not enough, but just long enough to help us pick up either a kill on them for my death, or to be able for me to get away and do what we have to do. But because of how this Chacc chose to go about his gameplay, and how he chooses to do things, because he's hungry for kills, he's not capable of using and having the damage that he needs to have to get what he needs done, and chooses to fight out a situation that he cannot win. And because he chooses to do this, it puts Rack in a situation where he has to chase down kills or choose to get out. And he chooses to go up, but he has to drop away because now they're fully ready to kill him, and they have all the heals that they need coming in. It's somewhat the same situation that we actually have here in this rotation. However, the case here is that one of ours is coming in for the gank, but they're not transitioning on the target that I've focused down. And at the same time, I've been rotated on and I can't stick this kill because of all the fights being ahead or behind me. Which just happens. Perfect difference between how I was able to do with the Hades and this with the Ymir. If it was Hades, she would have jumped on, she would have been held, she would have died. With Ymir, can't do that. So, I'm forced to play objectively instead of hyper-aggressive. Which isn't truly reflected in my items, because here, I have more offensive items than I do defensive items. But that's because of the fact that I was relegated to the solo lane, which puts me in an aggressive position because of how I'm playing against Chacc, and how we're inherently playing against 3 physicals and 2 magicals. Don't really have to worry so much about defensive items, as long as I'm able to kill Hebo in the time allotted, and as long as I'm able to hold Athena in place with Hebo with the damage from my skills, which makes attack speed very important for me. But moving on from that, the point that I wanted to make with this one is that Ymir and other gods, for example, Athena, Chacc, Arachne, Hades, and plenty of others that I'll go over with on the How to Smite tutorial series. There are multiple gods of multiple roles that are capable of doing other jobs, and despite having the power to do these jobs, are not the ideal positions that you want to have for them when you try calling for them. Despite you knowing how to do them, doesn't mean they should be the ones doing them. It is because of this type of understanding, this type of things that plenty and plenty of people would want to worry about. But, that's just one of the couple of things that tend to annoy me about plenty of stuff. Particularly because of this. A good example of this being how almost, because he's not paying attention, Chacc almost becomes a kill to Neith because of his lack of focus and his refusal to pay attention to what was going on in the jungle behind of him. Despite him running from help and actually playing into the hands of the enemy and almost getting killed. But because I was the tank in that situation, I was able to set up and delay the fight long enough for shenanigans to happen in the jungle that picked up those kills. Which I wouldn't have not been able to do had I been the tank on the lane that I was put on. Because I wouldn't have been in that position to get those done with that damage had I not had this. Which actually goes a little bit further to discuss how people need to stop talking about how you don't need a tank in a match, because you always need somebody to take damage. Because had I not been a tank role, and had I not had the defensive items to stay alive against her, Neith probably could have picked me up for a kill from behind. just because of the fact of how hard she was kiting me in that jungle. But, yeah. Because of how well I was able to play this match, we were able to pick it up with relative ease. You see, we still have 4 towers plus the birds up, which meant we were having a pretty good game. They were doing very well holding us off, even without the means of a team fight. Mostly because of how well Spider was able to try to deny me my laning opportunity for solo. But on a general term, it was because of those skills that we were able to do what we did. And because of that kind of skill of paying attention to what needed to have happen, what needed to be done, you were able to do what we needed to do. The only thing that I can say we truly had a problem with was when people were choosing to make very, very interestingly not good plays. Right now, namely Cupid. Cupid didn't want to retreat. I don't know why. He just chose to sit there. Honestly, he didn't really think it through, because what he wanted was to kill someone. That's what he wanted to do. But because of how he chooses to do what he does, he actually gets put into a bad spot that risks his life, and he ends up getting picked up on it. But that's just observation on the core of it. I didn't truly know what was going on inside of Cupid's mind to truly look out at it and say whether it was good or bad. But for what he was doing, it was worth it, because he was able to make the death count. But that's just a couple of stuff that just happened in that match that I just wanted to give a little bit of thought on. But in terms of what I'm saying, with the follow-up to the conversation from earlier, there are plenty of gods that can do plenty of things. For example, with Ymir, he can be solo, he can be duo. He is more better on duo because of his tank role, because of the guardian role. But he is capable of doing a jungle. He is capable of doing a middle, although not very well. Not against the premier gods that would be put on middle. But he is capable of doing middle, he is capable of doing duo, he is capable of doing jungle, and he is capable of doing solo. But he's best when put on a certain lane, which is what most people want to make as the argument about something. What they are and are not best at. When it comes to a tank, because of the survivability and because of the stuff that they have going for them, they're capable of doing plenty. But when it comes down to those specific roles and those specific positions, there's plenty of things that a person should and shouldn't be worried about. For me in this match, I think what I was worried about as Ymir was trying to keep my team alive, because I knew of how many ways Spider was trying to wait for the perfect opportunity to fountain melt us, which was one of my concerns. Not quite much the team's, but it was one of my concerns. The only other concern that I really had with this match, with my Ymir play, was my focus of how best to make the build. Because right here, I'm trying to decide whether or not it would be a good investment to choose the Ethereal Staff for the type of fights that we're having, which are fights that center around me and an objective. Because what was happening is that Cupid and Nuwa were circulating fights around me. And there was normally 4 objectives that were very important for us to have. Namely, the birds. Cupid and her try going for them, while Rack does extra stuff for us. Meanwhile, on the side, Chacc's just doing stuff, because he wants to get more levels, But, basically the fights were continuously circling around me, and choices being made and interesting stuff happening. And despite this stuff happening, and despite it being a thing, it just happened to go around. Because here, perfect example of what was going on right there. Because things were going on, and because stuff was going on, plays were just being made left and right. And because plays were being made left and right to make sure stuff happened, it was basically exactly like that. This being a perfect example, fights just circulating around me. This was what made me want to decide about the items. But the match itself, it's a very good example of why gods should be in the roles that they should be in. Because had I not been solo lane, I'm pretty sure I could have given myself a perfect Pelican match. But because of what I was in and what I chose to do, I couldn't. Which was just interesting. But yeah, that's really the finishing part of my two-parter. But when it comes down to it, it's just stuff, really. It's stuff that I can't really begin to put into words past why it is and why it happens. But it's more of my personal opinion of how people make it a problem, rather than it being a problem. But in my professional opinion, I could say truly that when a tank is a tank, let the tank do his job. Let him go where he needs to go, or let him go what he wants to do. And when you have a class that can do something better than somebody else who's requesting something, if you don't know about it, let them do it. If you do know about it, respect their position in trying to talk to them about it instead of just demanding that they do it because you said so, because bad things happen. That's all I wanted to say about this one. So, with that said, I will be peacing out. For BonuStage Entertainment, my name is Ran, and I will see you guys next time. Good night, everybody!